The world of Thalera was calm in the beginning. Green valleys stretched under twin suns, and tall silver towers of crystal cities reached into the sky. The people of Thalera were scholars, singers, and builders. They had lived in peace for centuries. They valued knowledge above weapons, harmony above conquest. Yet peace had made them weak against those who thrived on war. Far away, across the Black Sea of space, the Vayrek Empire grew like a storm. The Vayrek were known for their warships, their ruthless hunger for new worlds, and their belief that only the strongest had the right to rule. For years they had taken world after world, crushing defenses with overwhelming fleets. Now their eyes turned toward Thalera. The first signs were small raids. A few villages near the coast were burned by dropships. The Thalaran Council believed they could negotiate, as they had with smaller powers before. They sent envoys, but none returned. The raids grew larger, and soon entire cities were under bombardment. The skies of Thalera, once bright, grew filled with smoke and fear. The council finally gathered in their grand chamber, voices rising in desperation. Elder Saran, one of the oldest and wisest, stood before the others. We cannot stand against them. Our knowledge cannot stop their fire. We must send the ancient call to our allies. The Thalarans possessed a device older than memory, said to have been given to them by friends among the stars in forgotten ages. It was a beacon that could cross the vastness of the galaxy. When activated, it would call to those sworn to defend them. The council agreed there was no other choice. The device was prepared, its golden rings humming with power. A signal was shaped with care. It was a plea for help, wrapped in the old codes of alliance. The Thalarans hoped their ancient friends still lived, that they would answer the call. The beacon lit the sky like a second star, sending the message racing faster than light into the depths of space. The people of Thalera waited, praying their voices would be heard. But something went wrong. The message did not reach the allies it was meant for. Instead, it struck a relay network orbiting a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. That planet was Earth. On Earth, life was moving forward into a new age. Humanity had struggled through centuries of conflict, but at last the nations had united under a common council. Exploration of space had become a dream shared by all. Colonies on the Moon and Mars were growing, and the first deep space stations had been built. Yet humanity had never spoken to another intelligent race. They had listened for years with powerful receivers, but the stars had remained silent. Until now. At the orbital relay above Earth, alarms rang. Operators stared at screens as symbols and patterns filled their displays. The message was unlike anything they had seen. It was not random static. It was structured, layered, filled with meaning. Engineers worked quickly to decode it. Within hours, a translation began to take shape. It was a voice, calm yet filled with urgency. It spoke of a world under attack. It spoke of an empire bringing death. It asked for help, for allies, for friends. Humanity listened in silence. For the first time in history, Earth was hearing a call not from their own kind, but from another people across the stars. The news spread fast. Scientists confirmed the signal was real. Governments gathered in emergency sessions. The United Council met in the Great Chamber of Geneva, the same place where humanity had chosen peace after centuries of division. Now they faced a question no human had ever faced. Should they answer? Some leaders spoke with caution. They said humanity was still fragile. They had only just begun to step into space. To fight a galactic empire was madness. The risk was too great. If they revealed themselves, Earth might become the next target. Others spoke with fire in their voices. They said humanity had struggled for too long to hide now. If someone out there was asking for help, how could Earth remain silent? This was a chance to prove what kind of people humans were. They could not ignore the suffering of others, not if they wished to be worthy of the stars. Outside the council chambers, Crowds filled the streets. People held signs, some calling for caution, others demanding action. Across every nation, debates burned. Yet through it all, the image of the message stayed in the minds of all who saw it, the faces of beings far away, frightened and pleading for aid. In the end, the council could not ignore it. They made a choice. Humanity would answer. The order was given to assemble the first united fleet. Warships built for defense would now fly into unknown space. Crews were called, supplies loaded, engines prepared. For the first time, humanity was not simply looking at the stars. They were going to step into them as protectors. Far away, on the world of Thalera, the people watched their skies. They prayed for help, not knowing that their signal had been misdirected. They had not called Earth. Yet it was Earth that would come. And so, across the vast night, a journey began. Humanity, still young, still uncertain, was about to take its first step into the struggles of the galaxy. The message from the stars echoed across Earth like thunder. It played on every channel, translated into every language. The words were simple, yet heavy with fear and hope. A people far away were begging for help. For the first time, humanity was not alone. They had been noticed, and now they had a choice to make. In Geneva, the United Council sat in a tall circular hall made of glass and steel. The leaders of Earth gathered around a long table, each with lines of worry on their faces. Admiral Ryan, a broad-shouldered man with calm eyes, stood before them. He had spent his life building the new fleet that now waited in orbit. Beside him stood Captain Myra, young but sharp, known for her courage and quick thinking. Admiral Ryan began to speak. The call we received is real. Our analysts are certain. A world named Thalera is under attack by an empire called the Varuk. We must decide if we will answer. The council chamber filled with voices at once. Some argued with passion, some with fear. Chancellor Laren of the Western Alliance shook his head. We cannot risk it. We are new to space. Our colonies are still fragile. If we send our ships, we may lose them. If we reveal ourselves, the empire that strikes Thalera may turn its eyes to Earth. But from the other side of the chamber, Governor Raffi of the Asian Union stood. His voice carried the weight of the people he represented. If we turn away, what does that say about us? We worked for centuries to unite as one world. We declared that we would never again let cruelty go unchallenged. Now the stars themselves bring us a chance to prove it. Some nodded, others frowned. Captain Myra stepped forward. Her voice was steady. I will not hide behind fear. If we wait until we are strong, we will never move. Strength is not only in ships or weapons. It is in choosing to act when it matters. The Thalerans are asking for help. We are the only ones who heard. If not us, then who? Silence followed her words. Many in the chamber looked uneasy, but they could not deny her point. Humanity had been given a chance, whether by accident or fate, to stand for something greater. Outside the council, the world was watching. News screens showed endless debates. Families in their homes argued over dinner tables. Students marched in the streets, carrying signs that read "Answer the call" and "Humanity must choose." Others held signs warning of danger, demanding that the fleet stay home. For the first time in years, the world was divided again, but this time it was not over borders or resources. It was over whether humanity had the courage to step forward. Back in orbit, crews waited aboard the ships of the fleet. Soldiers polished their armor, engineers checked engines, pilots trained in simulators. They all listened to the council's debate with tense hearts. Some hoped to be chosen, others feared it, but none could ignore the weight of history pressing upon them. Finally, after hours of argument, the council returned to silence. The chair of the United Council, an elder named Eris, rose slowly. Her voice was soft but firm. We have struggled for too long to reach this moment. We dreamed of the stars not just for ourselves, but for what we could bring to them. The Thalarans may not have meant to call us, but their cry reached Earth. I say we answer. The vote was called. One by one, the lights around the chamber lit in green or red. The final count was close, but the green outnumbered the red. The decision was made. Humanity would go. Cheers erupted across much of the world. Families cried with pride. Young men and women volunteered for service, ready to join the crews. Poets wrote songs about a new dawn for mankind. Yet in some corners, fear still remained. People whispered that humanity was walking into a trap. Admiral Ryan wasted no time. Orders were sent across orbit. Prepare the fleet. The great ships of Earth began to awaken. Engines hummed with power. Cannons were loaded. Shield arrays came online. The ships were not as many as those of older empires, but they were strong, built with the best of human skill. Each one was a symbol of the unity Earth had achieved after centuries of division. On the flagship Horizon, Captain Myra stood on the command deck. She looked out through the wide window at the curve of Earth below. Her crew moved around her, steady and ready. She felt the weight of what lay ahead, but also a rising fire inside her chest. We will not fail, she whispered. The fleet rose from orbit, ships forming lines of light in the dark sky. Families on the ground looked up, seeing the bright trails crossing the heavens. Children pointed, their eyes wide with wonder. Across Earth, people held their breath. They did not know if their sons and daughters would return. They did not know if they could stand against a galactic empire. But they knew this was a turning point. Humanity was no longer a silent observer of the stars. They were stepping into them, carrying not only weapons, but also the will to protect. And far away, the world of Thalaris still burned. Its people prayed for their ancient allies, not knowing who had truly heard their call. The Vayrek ships circled above their cities, confident in their victory. But in the distance, across the vast ocean of space, Earth's first armada was on its way. The fleet of Earth sailed through the dark ocean of space. For days the stars remained silent, broken only by the hum of engines and the voices of crews at their stations. On every ship men and women worked with focus, their hearts filled with both fear and pride. They were the first humans to fly so far from home, carrying not only weapons but the hopes of an entire planet. Admiral Ryan spent long hours in the command chair of the Horizon, studying maps of the target system. Captain Myra often stood beside him, watching the lines of light shift on the screens. They knew little about the enemy called the Vayrek, only what the signal had revealed and what their analysts had guessed. That made the mission dangerous, yet also vital. Do you believe we are ready? Myra asked one night as the stars rolled silently by. We are never ready for the unknown, Ryan replied with calm eyes. But courage is not about being ready. It is about standing firm when it matters. Finally, the day arrived. The human fleet dropped from faster-than-light travel into the skies of Thalara. The sight that met them was worse than anyone had imagined. Below, the planet glowed with fire. Cities burned across continents. Great towers of smoke rose into the atmosphere. Above the surface, black warships circled like predators. They were the vessels of the Vayrek, long and sharp, with glowing red lights that cut across the darkness. Their cannons hurled blasts of energy at the ground, shaking the earth below. On the human ships, crews gasped at the sight. Screens filled with the images of destruction. The world they had come to save was already under siege. Contact, multiple enemy ships, the sensors officer reported. They have not noticed us yet. Admiral Ryan stood tall. They will notice soon enough. All ships, prepare for battle. We did not come to watch. The order spread through the fleet. Weapons armed, shields powered up, engines roared. The humans had fewer ships than the enemy, but every vessel was ready to fight with precision and unity. As the first Veyric patrol turned to meet them, the space around Thalera exploded into chaos. "Enemy ships moving in," shouted the tactical officer. "Fire," Ryan commanded. The horizon shook as its main cannons lit the void. Bright lances of energy crossed space and struck the first Veyric vessel. The enemy ship shuddered, armor cracking. A second volley from the cruiser Valor tore it apart in a burst of flame. The Veyric fleet turned at once, surprised but not broken. Their ships swarmed forward, firing streams of plasma. Human shields flared blue under the assault. The battle had begun. Down on Thalera, the people watched in shock. At first they had feared the newcomers, believing another invader had come to join the attack. But when the human ships fired upon the Veyric, hope lit their hearts. On the streets and in the shelters, voices rose in astonishment. "Who are they?" asked one Thalaran child as she looked to the sky. Her elder only whispered, "Friends, perhaps." Back in orbit, the fighting grew fierce. Captain Myra commanded the horizon with steady hands. "Target engines. Keep them off balance. Do not let them surround us." Her crew obeyed, striking with precision. The horizon cut across the enemy lines, blasting one Veyric ship after another. Smaller human frigates darted between the larger warships, striking at weak points. Though outnumbered, the humans fought like wolves against a larger foe, refusing to yield an inch. Admiral Ryan watched the screens. He saw enemy ships regrouping for a heavy strike. "Signal the Courage and the Dawn. Flank them from the left. We will punch through the center." The order worked. The Courage and the Dawn swept in from the side, unleashing a storm of fire. The horizon surged forward, breaking the enemy formation apart. The Veyric, unprepared for such tactics, faltered. They had expected an easy victory over weak defenders. Instead they found themselves fighting an opponent full of daring moves and relentless spirit. For hours the battle raged. Explosions painted the black sky. Human ships shook under heavy fire, but still they pressed on. Each crew fought not only for survival, but for the strangers below who had called for help. Finally, the remaining Veyric vessels began to retreat. They pulled back from orbit, their engines burning as they fled into the depths of space. A cheer rose across the human fleet. They had held the line. But victory was not complete. Many ships carried scars. Some were heavily damaged, their crews injured. Yet no one gave up. Engineers rushed to repairs, medics cared for the wounded, and captains prepared for the next strike. On the surface of Thalera, messages spread through the cities. The strangers in the sky had fought for them. They were not the ancient allies the Thalarans had hoped for. They were something new. In the council chamber of Thalera, Elder Saran stared at the images of the human fleet. "They answered our call, though they were not the ones we sent it to. Who are these people, to fight so fiercely for a world not their own?" No one could answer, but all felt the same spark of hope. On the horizon, Captain Myra stood beside Admiral Ryan. She looked at the burning world below, then at the stars where the enemy had fled. "This is only the beginning," she said quietly. Ryan nodded. "Yes. And now they know Earth has arrived." The smoke of battle still lingered in orbit above Thalera. Wreckage of Veyric ships floated among the stars, glowing with fading sparks. The human fleet, though scarred, held position. Engineers worked without rest to repair damaged hulls. Medics moved swiftly to treat the injured. Every crew member knew this was only the first clash of many. Admiral Ryan stood at the command deck of the horizon, his eyes on the great blue-green planet below. The Thalarans had seen humanity's arrival. Now came the moment to speak. Communication officers worked on signals, trying to match frequencies. At last, a channel opened. The screen flickered to life, showing the faces of the Thalaran Council. Their skin shimmered with soft light, their eyes wide and uncertain. Elder Saran, the leader, stepped forward. His voice carried both awe and suspicion. "Strangers," he said, "you came from the sky in fire and struck at the Varuk. Who are you, and why have you entered our war?" Admiral Ryan bowed his head with respect. "We are from Earth. Your call for aid reached us, though it seems it was not meant for us. Still, we could not ignore it. We came because no one should face destruction alone." The council members exchanged quiet whispers. They had expected their ancient allies, long remembered in their history. Instead they saw new beings, young and unfamiliar. Elder Saran lifted his gaze again. "You are not the ones we called. The signal was for friends of old, protectors who once swore to defend us. But you, humans, answered instead." Captain Myra stepped forward beside the admiral. Her tone was firm yet gentle. "We may not be the ones you hoped for, but we are here. We do not need to be asked twice when lives are at stake. If the Varuk wish to take your world, they will have to face us as well." The words carried weight. The Thalarans were not a warlike people. They had little understanding of battle, yet they could feel the honesty in Myra's voice. For the first time since the invasion began, their council felt a flicker of hope. Elder Saran nodded slowly. "Perhaps fate has chosen this path. If you are willing to fight, then you will not fight alone. We may not hold many weapons, but we hold knowledge. We can share what we know of the Varuk." Thus began the alliance. Over the next days, human officers met with Thalaran leaders through long transmissions. The Thalarans provided detailed maps of enemy movements, information about Varuk tactics, and old records of their fleet structure. Though their people had little strength for war, their scholars had studied every attack with careful eyes. On the horizon, Myra studied these reports late into the night. She noticed patterns: how the Varuk always struck in overwhelming waves, how they ignored weaker resistance and sought to crush defenses quickly. She began shaping counter-moves, teaching her crews to strike fast and vanish, to turn the enemy's strength into weakness. Meanwhile, on Thalara itself, humans sent down small landing teams. Soldiers and engineers walked among the crystal towers of the cities. The Thalarans stared with wonder at these armored strangers. The humans repaired damaged shield stations and taught basic defenses. Children followed them through the streets, whispering about the visitors who had fought the Sky Raiders. One evening, a Thalaran child approached a human soldier named Aaron. She looked at his armor with wide eyes and asked, "Why did you come when the call was not for you?" Aaron smiled and knelt down. "Because sometimes the call you do not expect is the one that matters most. We came because it was right." Stories of such words spread quickly among the Thalarans. Their fear began to turn into courage. Yet not all was calm. The Varuk had not vanished. Scouts reported that enemy ships were regrouping beyond the edge of the system. Larger forces were gathering. The first battle had only been a test. The true storm was still on its way. Admiral Ryan gathered his captains in the command chamber of the horizon. Maps of the system glowed around them. "The Varuk will return in greater numbers," he said. "If we wait, they will overwhelm us. We must strike first, using the element of surprise. With Thalaran knowledge, we can fight smarter than they expect." Captain Myra pointed to the twin moons of Thalara. "Here. If we place hidden batteries on the dark side of the moons, we can trap the enemy fleet when they move into orbit. We can force them into our fire, instead of theirs." The captains nodded in agreement. The plan was daring, risky, but it gave them a chance to stand against the stronger foe. Back on Thalara, the council debated whether to allow weapons on their sacred moons. For a people who had lived in peace for centuries, the idea was heavy. Yet Elder Saran reminded them, peace without defense is an illusion. If we wish to survive, we must stand with our new allies. With solemn hearts, the council agreed. In the following days, human engineers worked beside Thalaran builders, installing weapons and shield generators on the moons. For the first time in their history, Thalara's people prepared for battle not with words, but with strength. And they did not stand alone. As the work finished, the human fleet gathered once more. The crews were tired, yet determined. They knew the enemy was coming soon. Captain Myra stood at the great window of the horizon, watching the planet below and the moons shining like guardians. She thought of Earth, far away, and of the choice they had made to answer a call not meant for them. Now that choice had bound them to a world that looked at them with hope. "Admiral," she said softly, "we will be ready." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Yes. And when the Varric return, they will find more than they bargained for." In the silence of space, the humans and Thalarans prepared together. An unexpected alliance had been born, forged not by old promises, but by courage and need. And though the Varric believed victory was certain, they would soon learn that humanity was not a people to underestimate. The moons of Thalara glowed pale in the dark, silent guardians above the burning planet. Hidden on their shadowed sides were new defenses, human weapons carefully placed with Thalaran guidance. Energy cannons, shield generators, and launch platforms waited for the moment they would be needed. On the surface of the planet, people worked side by side with human engineers, slowly learning that survival required more than words. But beyond the system, danger grew. Scouts reported that the Varric were gathering their strength. Dozens of warships were coming, greater than before, a fleet meant to crush Thalara once and for all. On the flagship horizon, Admiral Ryan stood before his captains. A map of the system glowed around them, marked with enemy movements. His voice was calm, but all could feel the gravity in his words. "The Varric have been humiliated once. They will not accept it. Their next assault will be overwhelming. If we falter, Thalara will fall. If we hold, we may give the galaxy a new reason to fear humanity." Captain Myro leaned over the table, studying the map. "We cannot meet them with numbers. But we can meet them with strategy. They do not yet know what waits on the moons. We will use that to our advantage." The plan was set. The human fleet would stand between Thalara and the enemy, drawing the Varric forward. When the battle reached its height, the hidden batteries on the moons would spring to life, surrounding the invaders with unexpected fire. The days before the battle were filled with tense preparation. On the horizon, crews checked every system. Soldiers trained in close combat drills in case enemy boarders reached their decks. Pilots memorized maneuvers that pushed their small craft to the limits. Engineers worked sleepless hours, sealing damaged hulls from the first battle. Each person knew the cost of failure. Down on Thalara, the people watched the sky with both fear and hope. For centuries they had known no war. Now they placed their trust in strangers from a distant blue planet. Children painted the images of human ships on the walls of shelters. Elders spoke quietly of destiny, wondering if this meeting of worlds had been written long ago. The day arrived without warning. Alarms rang across the human fleet as enemy ships burst into the system. The Varric had come. Dozens of dark vessels spread across the stars, their red lights glowing like fire. Their voices filled the human channels with threats. "This world belongs to the Empire. Leave now, or be destroyed." Admiral Ryan gave a single answer. "Earth does not abandon those who call for help. If you want this world, you must fight us for it." The order was given. "All ships, hold formation. Shields up. Prepare to engage." The Varric came like a storm. Their first volley of plasma fire lit the void. Human shields flared under the impact, but the fleet held steady. Then came the answer lances of blue energy from Earth's cannons, striking with deadly precision. Enemy ships shuddered and cracked, yet more pressed forward. The horizon shook as impacts rocked its hull. Crew members held their ground, shouting reports. "Shields at 60%. Enemy ships flanking from the right." Turn into them, Myra ordered sharply. Do not give them our side. The horizon swung into position, unleashing a broadside that tore into the flanking ships. 2 Vayrek vessels exploded in fire. Yet for each one destroyed, more took its place. The enemy pressed with relentless numbers, driving closer to Thalera. But humanity fought with something the Vayrek had not expected. They fought with unity, with creativity, with courage. Smaller frigates darted into enemy formations, distracting them. Fighters flew daring runs through narrow gaps, striking at weak points before vanishing again. The larger cruisers formed shields for the smaller ships, protecting them at great risk. Every move was calculated not just to survive, but to protect each other. For hours the battle raged. The human fleet bent under the weight of the assault but did not break. Admiral Ryan's voice remained steady across the channels. Hold the line. Remember why we are here. Remember who is watching below. And then the moment came. The Vayrek fleet pushed closer to Thalera, confident that victory was near. They spread wide to surround the human ships. That was when the moons lit up. From the shadows, hidden cannons blazed. Beams of energy struck the enemy from behind, cutting through their armor. Shield generators on the moons flared, blocking enemy fire. The Vayrek, caught between the human fleet and the moons, staggered in confusion. Now, Admiral Ryan commanded. All ships, forward. Break them. The human armada surged ahead with renewed fire. The enemy lines broke apart under the combined assault. One by one, Vayrek warships exploded into flames, their confidence shattered. They had expected an easy hunt, but instead they found themselves trapped by the courage of a young species and the resolve of a peaceful world that had learned to fight. On the ground, the people of Thalera looked to the sky. They saw the flashes of battle, the fire of ships breaking apart. And in their hearts, something new was born. They were no longer helpless. With their new allies, they could stand. At last, the Vayrek began to retreat. Their commanders called for withdrawal, their ships vanishing into the darkness beyond the system. The battlefield fell silent, filled only with the drifting remains of wrecked vessels. The human fleet stood scarred but unbroken. Cheers erupted on every ship. The line had held. The Vayrek had been forced back. On the horizon, Captain Myra stood at her station, her uniform torn, her face marked with exhaustion but also pride. She turned to Admiral Ryan. They know us now. The Vayrek will not forget this day. Ryan gave a firm nod. Good. Let the galaxy learn. Humanity does not run. We stand. And so the story of Earth's armada grew. In the eyes of the Thalerans, they were no longer strangers. They were protectors. And in the minds of their enemies, they were no longer a nameless world at the edge of the stars. They were a force that could not be ignored. The Vayrek had retreated beyond the outer reaches of the system, but their shadow hung over Thalera like a storm waiting to return. The human fleet and Thalaran defenses were not idle. Engineers repaired hulls, medics treated the wounded, and pilots ran exercises that pushed their skills to the limit. Every person knew that the enemy would not rest, and neither could they. Admiral Ryan gathered his captains on the horizon. The holographic map of Thalera glowed between them. Red dots marked the last known positions of the Vayrek. They will come back, Ryan said, his voice steady. This time in greater numbers. We must strike smart and fast. Retreat is not an option. Our goal is not just to survive. It is to turn the tide. Captain Myra pointed to the twin moons, now fortified and glowing softly with shield generators. We can use the moons to trap them. If we place our fleet here and hide smaller strike teams, we can force the Vayrek into a bottleneck. They will have to face both us and the hidden batteries. The captain studied the map carefully. They knew the plan was daring. If they miscalculated, the fleet could be destroyed before it even reached the moons. Yet the choice was clear. To wait and defend Thalera openly would invite disaster. To act boldly offered a chance to change the outcome of the war. "Prepare strike teams," Ryan ordered. "We move at first light. Every ship ready for full engagement. This is the moment we decide whether Thalera lives or falls." The night passed slowly. Crew members moved through the ships with quiet purpose. Some wrote messages to loved ones on Earth, knowing they might not return. Others focused on drills, their hands steady even as their hearts raced. On the surface of Thalera, people waited in shelters, listening to the faint hum of engines above and hoping the strangers in the sky could hold the line. At dawn, the human fleet advanced. Scouts flew ahead, reporting the enemy's position. The Varric had returned, even more numerous and confident than before. Their massive ships cut through space like black spears, their engines glowing red. The fleet braced for the attack. Energy shields flared as the Varric opened fire, a storm of plasma and destruction. Human ships rocked under the first blows, but the crews held formation. "Remember the moons," Myra reminded her pilots. "Lead them where we want them. Draw them into the trap." The Varric, confident in their numbers, pursued aggressively. They surrounded the fleet, believing they could crush it quickly. That was when the hidden batteries on the moons activated. Beams of energy struck the flanks of the Varric, hitting ships from angles they did not expect. Shields flared and armor cracked. Confusion spread among the enemy lines. The human fleet pressed forward, striking with precision. Small strike teams darted between the larger warships, sabotaging engines and weapons. The Varric faltered. Their numbers were strong, but their strategy had failed. They had assumed humans were weak and predictable. Instead, they faced a species that fought with intelligence and courage. On the horizon, Admiral Ryan barked orders, every word measured. "Concentrate fire on the lead ships. Do not let them regroup. Protect the moons at all costs. Keep the strike teams moving." Captain Myro led one of the strike teams, piloting her small craft through the chaos. She targeted an enemy battleship's engine, disabling it with a precise shot. The ship drifted helplessly as humans attacked from all sides. Around her, other strike teams performed similar maneuvers, striking fast and vanishing before the Varric could respond. The battle stretched for hours. The void of space was filled with explosions, flashes of energy, and the soundless chaos of destruction. Human ships suffered damage, but none broke formation. They fought not just to survive, but to protect Thalera and the people who had placed their hope in them. Finally, the Varric fleet began to waver. Confusion turned to fear as their formations fell apart. One by one, their ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. The survivors withdrew, leaving behind a trail of burning wreckage. On Thalera, the people watched as the enemy fled. The sky, once filled with fire and death, was quiet once more. Children ran outside, pointing to the stars. Elders wept quietly, grateful for the unexpected saviors. Admiral Ryan and Captain Myra stood on the horizon, looking at the battlefield. "We did it," Myra said quietly. "Thalera is safe, for now." Ryan nodded, but his eyes were thoughtful. "This victory is important, but the war is not over. The Varric will return. They will learn from this. We must be ready, stronger, and smarter than ever." On the surface of Thalera, Elder Saran addressed the people. "We have seen courage beyond our expectations. These humans came to us when we were alone and in despair. They fought not for glory, but because it was right. Let this day remind us that hope can arrive from the most unexpected places." Among the Thalarans, gratitude and admiration grew. They began to help more actively with defenses, learning from the humans, preparing for future attacks. A bond had formed, not just of necessity, but of trust and respect. For the humans, the victory was more than a tactical success. It was proof that Earth could stand among the stars. Humanity had arrived, not as silent observers, but as a force that could face empires and protect those who could not protect themselves. As the fleet regrouped, readying for repairs and rest, Captain Myra looked toward the distant edge of the system. "They will come back," she said. "Yes," Ryan agreed. "And when they do, we will meet them with everything we have. Humanity has chosen to stand tall. No empire can forget that." In the calm after the storm, the first step towards something greater had been taken. The human armada had proven its worth, and the galaxy was beginning to notice that Earth was no longer silent. The system around Thalera was quiet now, but tension hung like a shadow. The Varric had retreated, but their threat was far from gone. Across the fleet, humans and Thalarans worked tirelessly to repair damage, reinforce defenses, and prepare for the possibility of another attack. Every ship, every soldier, and every citizen knew that victory had been hard won, and the future still demanded vigilance. Admiral Ryan walked through the horizon, stopping to speak to crews. He shook hands, offered words of encouragement, and listened to reports. He saw exhaustion on every face, but also pride. For the first time, humanity had acted in the wider galaxy and had made a difference. Captain Myra met him on the observation deck. Below them, Thalera's cities gleamed softly, their fires of battle replaced by the glow of rebuilding. Children played in cleared streets, and citizens carried supplies to repair homes. Thalera had survived, and it was because of humans. "They will remember this," Myra said, her eyes on the planet below. "Not just the Varric, but everyone who watches the stars. Humanity is no longer unknown." Ryan nodded. "Yes. We came because it was right. That is enough. Everything else follows." Elder Saran of Thalera sent a message to the fleet. His words were simple, yet filled with deep respect. "We asked for help and found it in the stars. Your people did not hesitate. You fought with courage and honor. Thalera will remember this for all time. You are welcome here, not as strangers, but as allies and friends." On the surface, humans walked among the Thalarans, teaching, learning, and helping rebuild. Engineers repaired shield stations, medics tended to the wounded, and soldiers trained the Thalarans in basic defense techniques. A partnership had grown, one born from necessity but strengthened by respect. For many, it was a humbling experience. Thalarans had long believed that the universe was vast and unknowable. Now they understood that courage could bridge the stars, and that even the smallest decisions could have great consequences. In the fleet, messages arrived from Earth. Families waited anxiously for news. Across every nation, people listened to the transmissions and celebrated the courage of those who had answered a call from far beyond their world. Songs were written, speeches delivered, and children told stories of the heroes who had crossed the darkness to protect strangers in need. Yet amidst celebration, human leaders remained vigilant. Ryan and Myra held council with captains and tacticians, reviewing lessons from the battle. They knew the Varric would return, stronger and more cautious. They studied their strategies, refined their formations, and trained their crews to anticipate any threat. Humanity had arrived among the stars, but survival required wisdom as much as courage. Late one night, Myra stood alone on the observation deck. She watched the moons rotate slowly above the planet, their weapons dormant but ready. She thought of Earth, so far away, and of the choice they had made to answer a call they were never meant to receive. That choice had changed the course of history. A soft voice came behind her. It was Captain Aaron, a close friend and fellow pilot. "You wonder if it was fate," he said quietly. "I think it was courage. We chose to act, and the universe responded." Myra smiled. "Perhaps. Or perhaps we simply proved that humanity does not wait for permission when someone needs help. That is what sets us apart." Aaron nodded, looking at the stars. "The Varric will learn soon enough." On Thalera, Elder Saran held a council with his people. We have seen what courage can do. These humans came not because they were ordered, but because they understood what was right. Let this be a lesson for all of us. Courage and wisdom can shape the fate of worlds. The alliance between humans and Thalarans became stronger each day. Ships were repaired, defenses strengthened, and strategies shared. Humans trained alongside Thalarans, showing them that even a peaceful people could learn to defend their home without losing their values. The galaxy, meanwhile, had begun to notice. Observers from distant systems recorded the battle and the courage of the humans. Whispers spread through star systems about a new power rising at the edge of known space. Earth, once a quiet world, was now known as a species willing to act, to protect, and to stand tall even against empires. In the fleet, Admiral Ryan gave a speech to his crews. We answered a call from a distant world. We fought not for conquest, but for what was right. Today, we have proven that humanity has a place among the stars. Remember this. Remember why we stand. And remember that courage, honor, and determination can overcome even the greatest threats. Cheers rang out across the fleet. Sailors, soldiers, and officers alike felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had arrived. They had saved the world and begun a legacy that would be remembered across the galaxy. As the sun rose over Thalara, painting the skies with gold and silver light, Captain Myro looked at the horizon. She felt hope, pride, and a deep sense of purpose. Humanity had made a choice, answered a call, and in doing so had claimed a new place among the stars. And far away, in the dark reaches of the galaxy, the Varric plotted their next move. But they would no longer see humanity as a quiet, unknown world. They would see a species that answers when others call, a species that fights with courage, and a species that has found its place in the stars. The future was uncertain, but one truth was clear. Earth would not remain silent. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would remember it forever.